right. Hello, everyone. My name is Maja Sahajic. I'm co-chair of the Committee of New Directions of the Scholarship for the Icon S. And today I have a great pleasure and also an honor to talk to Wim Voermans, who is Professor of Constitutional and Administrative Law at Leiden University. Wim's current research is actually focusing on the theory and practice of comparative constitutional law, also European law. He takes a special interest, I think, in the working, but also the effects of constitutional law. And when I say effects, it means social, political, economic, so it means something contextual in terms of effects, which is based also on his thesis of constitutional law working as literature. He also studies constitutional legitimacy issues and overall observance and performance of constitutional systems. Today we'll be discussing his latest book, The Story of Constitutions, Discovering We in Us, exactly, where Wim actually asks the question, how did the worldwide diffusion of constitutions come about, given the fact that out of 189 of 193 officially recognized nation states have a written constitutions, and 75% of these have been ratified since 1975. What Wim does is actually that he traces this the story of constitutions, or the constitution's story, way back or since the agricultural revolution, but he also uses interdisciplinary approach to show us actually how human nature, human evolution, and the history of thought has actually played their part in shaping modern constitutions, and how the constitutions actually in turn have shaped societies, but also us altogether. So the story of constitutions is actually vital, in Wim's words, I think, to understanding our civilization, our world, and most importantly, I think, ourselves. But before we dive into the content of the book, I will start with first welcome Wim.
Thank you for having me, Maja. Yeah.
And I will start with a rather broad question to put actually everything into perspective. And that broad question is something that we ask nearly every of our colleagues that we interview. And that question is, how would you describe actually the state of comparative constitutionalism, or the state of comparative constitutional or public law today, and how it has changed throughout your career?
Yes, I think comparative constitutional law has made major strides over the last decade. So we're in a very exciting time when it comes down to the scholarly study of constitutions. Back in my day, I'm in this field of constitutional law for more than 40 years. And back in the day, in the 1980s and the 1990s, then comparative law was studied like this. You took the constitution of Germany, the one of France, and then you wondered that the United Kingdom did not have a constitution, and compared these three countries. And I've been to many constitutional conferences in the 1990s. And what happened then was that people were reading out in English their own constitution. There was not a lot of exchange, and a very limited set of constitutions to study. This all changed with the initiative of Constitute.org. Constitute, we all know it, which is a wonderful database we can all use, set in Austin, Texas, the University of Texas is organizing that. And now you can, on on the textual level, study all of the constitutions that are in place all over the world. So you can do a lot of new things. But constitutional scholarship has also opened up, especially some people are to be credited for that. That is Tom Ginsburg, for instance, Zachary Elkins, but also trailblazer Ran Hirschel, who have made a new agenda with new challenges for constitutional scholarship, and that has taken wings all over the world. So the innovation in constitutional scholarship is afoot at this moment, which is wonderful to do, and that it is studied interdisciplinary also. So we are making big strides in better understanding what constitutions are by comparing them worldwide over and seeing how they work and how they function and what their effects are and what is happening and what is not happening. So we can study the whole of the world, which gives a much bigger picture.
I like how you mentioned, first you mentioned limitations in the studies, but then you also excitedly talk about opening up of the field. You talk about trailblazers, you talk about new agendas, challenges, but also about methodologies of Herschel, Ginsburg, and all of the others that you also pointed out. I wonder how that has actually affected your scholarship, or how has your scholarship evolved over the time, driven by this evolution from the limitation throughout the opening of the field?
Yes. The book begins with an introduction that sets me back in my classroom when we studied constitutional law. There you had a sort of a high priest, a person who was very dull and who read out the Constitution. And I was always wondering, I had some basic questions. As it happened, I did not have a lot of friends in law school. I knew a lot of people from economics. These were my friends, just haphazardly so. And they had very basic questions, like, okay, what are the effects of a constitution? You say it is the law, and how is it upheld? What does it cost? Things like that. They had basic questions. And when I came to the classroom, then there was some high priest waving away all of these questions because they were not the right questions. And that always bugged me. Another step was when I did my PhD. So as a sort of a miracle, I stayed in the field of law, but I did my PhD in legal informatics. So I was quite used to work with an interdisciplinary team. And that has always kept with me during my whole career. And I know a lot of historians, people from political science, and these are all fields that interest me a lot. And of course, that makes you prone and open to new directions. Excuse the pun, in studying constitutional law. So I do believe that the only that it's a very important new way that has opened up for us, and we can use methodologies from other disciplines. So empirics, we can use empirical studies, statistics. That is, of course, this wonderful book, The Endurance of Constitutions. I really love it. It was an example for what I did here. The Endurance of Constitutions by James Melton, Tom Ginsburg, and Zachary Elkins in 2009. They had very basic questions. So they had the question, does age matter for how a constitution functions? And are constitutions that have been there for a long time, for say for 2 centuries, are people in those countries better off when it comes down to welfare or other things? And I thought it was wonderful. I read that with very keen interest at the time, and I thought that's the way to go, trying to understand how constitutions work. The one thing I do in the book as well, if you allow me, Maya, is, for instance, so we take the history of constitutions. That's a third of the book. Where does it all come from, and how does it function? But I've taken a look at all of these constitutions in the world and asked myself the question, are they converging? They seem to have, the modern constitutions, a lot in common. So a lot of paragraphs and articles express the same things: freedom of speech, structure of government, things like that. And now, if you take an empirical stance, you can see that indeed constitutions in the world are converging. A lot of them share more than 74%, again the 74%, but it's up to 70 to 74% of their content. It's the same. And that's all expressed by tenets of the liberal democracy. That's not to say that in every country you have a constitution expressing liberal democracy elements, that these nations all are very serious in delivering on them, on this promise. There are a lot of sham constitutions. The wonderful article by Mira Versteeg. You can study that as well, but you see convergence, and you can only see things like that if you can compare all of the constitutions in the world, and if you have other data, you can tie that into that and see how constitutions manifest themselves, and how you can better study them and their effects.
Mm-hmm. I like how you talk about, I think you were also a trailblazer as well, because you also talk about innovative methodologies that you used in your research, and how you also paid attention to it, how you were surrounded by interdisciplinarity all of your career as well. I like that you mentioned also empirical studies as very important and so on. To that end, and taking into consideration this evolution, how does is the question that I wanted to ask, I don't know if it's now a superficial question, or is it like superfluous question even, how does your new book then fit within your existing scholarship? Is it something different, or is it just a continuation of something that you already have done?
Yeah, it was a continuation of something I already was doing. I'm a real big fan of Steven Pinker, who Enlightenment Now, Better Angel of Our Nature. I'm reading his book as well, but he comes from a background. His tutor was Noam Chomsky. That's language theory, and I was always very interested in literature, but also in storytelling literature. So people have a unique ability. So we in times immemorial, when we were first starting out as Homo sapiens, we are social animals, like a lot of other animals as well. And social animals have neural limits. That means that they are that the possibility to cooperate is neurally limited. So you have red ants in Africa that can have colonies that are 220,000 big. You will never find a colony of 240,000. That's their limit on cooperation, and that's wired into their brains. Elephants, I believe, is something like 18, a group. And you will not find a group any bigger than that. That's the neural limit. People have this limit as well. This was found out by Robin Dunbar in the 70s and 80s. We have a limit of 148. That is the limit in which we can blindly trust one another, the bigger family group. If you go beyond this limit, then strangers are not your best friends per se. So we are limited at 148. But we, during our evolution, have found something that's the biggest invention ever. We can come up with imagined worlds. So we can use institutions that are, in fact, stories, like the value of money, the nation, and we can believe strongly in that, and that enables us to cooperate on a much larger scale than 148. So that is how we have dominated the world. And one of these stories that is why there are so many, that is my explanation, why there are so many constitutions in the world. That is that the story of a constitution is so convincing and can mobilize people in such a way that you even can ask them to stand in harm's way. So a draft from the military, or they are willing to pay taxes for a community of people they do not really know, but they know the story, they know the nation, and the Constitution is full of sort of very strong fictions that enable people to cooperate in a peaceful way and a very effective way. And that is, I think, why there are so many constitutions, because this is the one I have. Doesn't cost a thing. The military is very expensive, but to have a constitution is quite cheap. And it is a mobilizing instrument. The story resounds so strong that people are willing to cooperate under it, in it, through it. That's what I find fascinating. And this comes from, and I tell that in the book as well, there is a chapter on storytelling. And this is Mr. Fisher has come up with this theory. And when I read that, and I read it with Steven Pinker, because he's a language expert as well, then I thought, when I read that, and that was 7 years ago, that's something I want to do something with that. Yeah.
When you talk about Pinker and Fisher, I think you actually give me a little bit of flash to actually open the next question. And that is the question about what line of scholarship does the book actually build upon? Because you started actually answering a little bit about that in your previous question. Maybe you can go further on that a little bit, because I think it's very interesting and important. But you can also add a little bit about how it actually differs from the existing accounts or existing books, competing books in the same field.
Yes. In the same field, there are not a lot of books around that take the same route as I do. I already told you this wonderful book, The Endurance of Constitutions. That's like Monty Python says, that was something completely different at the time. And there are many nice books. But the one thing that was inspirational for me as well, that was Constitutional Emotions by Andras Zajel. So the constitutions have everything to do with emotions. They try to sing to you. They try to mobilize you, promise you wonderful things. They harp on your emotions, as it were, and that makes them strong. You see that in preambles. I've written a book on preambles before I wrote this book, and set them apart. And especially preambles are sirens. They try to draw you in. Everybody knows the preamble of the U.S. Constitution, a poetic text. And that's not all constitutions are poetic, but the imagined world they draw up, the story they tell about it. That's a very strong story. In political science, it was Francis Fukuyama who was the example for the book I wrote. Not the only one. Benedict Anderson, of course, with his imagined worlds, was very important. There's a lot of scholarships in, but to give a few highlights. I'm a real big fan of somebody who is often overlooked in constitutional law, but I think he's the most stellar constitutional lawyer that is around. He's from political science and history. He's a political economist. That's John Elsteer. He's from Norway. And he knows all about France, has written, a lot of things on economic effects of constitutions, but also on how constitutions work. He was really a big inspiration. I've never met him. He's aging now. I believe he must be in his 80s, but he was very inspirational as well. And so you have a lot of people who are in economic science or in political science who try to dig deeper when it comes down to constitutions. They do not stop at the question, why are constitutions there? And then some lawyers, classic lawyers, 30, 40 years ago, their answer was, because it is the law. If you stop there, that's not really good for research, but especially in political science. Rainer Hirschfeld is a political scientist, Tom Ginsburg as well. They tend to look further afield, and that's something I really like. And John Elster he brings it all together: emotions, economic effects, history. I really love history. A third of the book is on history of constitutions, how from the stele of Hammurabi, that's not the first one, by the way, up till the modern constitutions. I have some 14 generations to discuss with you in the book, that are going through Roman, so from Greece to Rome to medieval Europe, and things like that. So you step through the history of constitutions in order to get a better view and an idea where these deep roots lie. But this was all helped on the way by big examples of scholars in my field looking further afield. And then the one I must not forget, that is Kim Lane Shepler. She's been a big inspiration because she's a sociologist and tries to understand what constitutions do, how people internalize constitutions. So we did a test in the Netherlands and all over the world. They do that. That is the Annenberg Center of Philadelphia University does it annually, and it begins with you have 10 questions to put to the public. The first one is in a big survey. Do you think the Constitution is important? And then you get these Chinese election outcomes. Yes, says 85%. Question 2, do you know the Constitution? No, says 84%. And that struck me, and it is always fun to do that because it's a big paradox, of course. But then in the Netherlands, we turn this question around, not make it a very simple question. So we asked, do you think the Constitution is important? 90% said yes. Do you know the Constitution? 84% said no. And then we began to probe them on whether they knew the values expressed in the Constitution. So we asked them a question, do you think this or that question is in the Constitution, or if you want to solve this problem, is it something you need just a parliamentary act, or is it in the Constitution? And they were actually quite good. So this we did from 15 to 85, 1,200, all walks of life, very representative. And then that was the mystery, and that is, I'm going back to Kim Lane Shepler. People internalize the Constitution. They do not know where the specific provision is or what it is, but they know the set of values quite well. Eerily good they were in our survey. So that is something that was really inspirational for me. Kim Lane Shepler, as a sociologist like her, trying to understand how people get into the Constitution, what it means in their daily lives. And she's been very inspirational for that.
As we are talking about inspiration to write this book, I think we're boiling down towards the content of the book, I think. So I think this is the right time to ask about the main claims of the book.
Yes. The main claim is so it's a functionalist question I put to myself. How does it come that we have a world full of global coverage of constitutions at this moment? So the book says 96% of all countries have a constitution, and most of them, 189 in one document. And they're very new, 74%. How does this revolution come about? What this makes it tick? What kind of effect comes from it? And how can we understand what is happening there? And then the main claim is the constitution is a very strong story. So it can harp on emotions of people, mobilize them. It's a very strong story. That's the main claim. And that's why we have global coverage at this moment. There are also other claims that constitutions have deep root in human nature. They fit in the way we cooperate. They're tools of cooperation. And you see them very early on. The first cities had a problem. I told you about this 148. There is this wonderful book, Against the Grain, of, now I have to look whether I have it here. I don't know the author, Against the Grain, who showed that after the Neolithic Revolution, 10,000 years ago, when people started to live in cities, so they left their groups, tribes of approximately 148 big. So that is how we survived for 250,000 years. That's our natural way of life. And then the Neolithic agricultural revolution came in, and we needed to stay with our crop. We could not travel around and things like that. And so cities came about. So huge agglomerations of people way beyond the 148. And this book, Against the Grain, shows us that people were living in cities. That it shows the story of the Tower of Babel. So once there were 2,000 people living in the city, and then it all collapsed. So it was very vulnerable. We needed to find out how we could keep this cooperation running and to have trust above the 148 and not mistrust strangers. And we did it by using the law. The law is sort of a fiction, but saying, listen, there are things around us. And sometimes in the stele of Hammurabi, God has ordained our king to put down the law. We know that, whether it's from Moses or from Babylon. So God has given us the law, and we need to adhere to that. So if we trade and we even don't know each other, we have this fiction between us, the law that you should pay for what I deliver. That's a fascinating thing. And there you can see the first constitutions. They're not nothing like modern constitutions, because there were no states and things like that. But it does the same thing. The stele of Hammurabi does the same thing. It tries to inspire trust and give recognition. These are the two pillars of human cooperation, to jump the 148 bar and to have even trust between strangers so that they can cooperate. And if you have a bigger group that can cooperate well, they can dominate smaller groups. And that is where the net effect comes in from constitutions. If you have a tool that allows you to work together with more than 48, you can dominate groups. And that is, of course, something that is very sought after when it comes down to human cooperation and evolution.
I know we talked about your methodological preferences, but I think we also need to clarify as well, what was your methodology and approach to actually address all of this complexity that you were actually referring to in your previous answer?
Yes, I do not use one single method. So what I told you now is, of course, if you're going to look for the roots of human cooperation, you need to have some understanding of history, use methods like that, but also anthropology. So this wonderful man, Robin Dunbar, he wrote a book on grooming, the language, and gossip. We have big brains because we gossip. That is how we try to get information from a stranger. So you gossip about somebody you do not know quite well, and then you can triangulate the information. Fascinating book, small book, Robin Dunbar. And he makes the case, and also there are Jared Diamond that does that as well, how humans have evolved and how they cooperate. And that is also, you will find that with Francis Fukuyama, The Origins of Political Order, does the same thing. I use that method as well. I try to understand human cooperation, and my understanding is that human cooperation is built on. So we can only work with 148 others in a natural way. That's above that, strangers are dangerous, and we can overcome that by imagined worlds, and they do two things, because human cooperation is built on trust and recognition. You need to be able to trust the people with which you cooperate, and you need to know your place. So what is your role in the whole thing? And that is what constitutions and law does. It allows for trust. So the law is for all of us. And if upheld, you can trust and see what will happen in the future, and even you there. And recognition, we do that first of all with status. So somebody is a priest, somebody is a king, but also status is all what we have, Maya. We have diplomas. That's a form of recognition. So society knows these people have studied this. They might know a bit more about it than other people. But recognition is also, if you look at a human right, saying you are an individual and so we have a large group, but you have a place there too. So your individuality is worth protecting. So, that is what I tried to what I did discover in this literature. So the first one is looking through history and trying to understand how human beings have evolved and how they had byproducts, as it were, which is constitution. So that's the first method I used. The second one is theoretical. So during the steps through history, I also go into political philosophy and how that blossomed during the Middle Ages, and especially the new age of enlightenment after that. So that was revolutionary, because the Christian community, there was individuality had no role. And then Baruch Spinoza came and he said, very simple, everybody should read Baruch Spinoza. He said, God gave us a mind, do something with it. That's my summary of so you're an individual. You can relate to God. You can understand him. You're not just somebody without any power and individuality. And that was the change, of course, to the age of enlightenment. That was really revolutionary, saying individuals can think. He is Baruch Spinoza, is the René Descartes of political philosophy, and he made a claim for individuality, a legal humanism. So that's what I do in a part of the book as well, theory. And then come the parts of political effects of constitutions. That's political theory I use there. Economic effects of constitution, in which I go into the economic effects of constitution, which was really fun to write. And then, the rest you need to write for yourself. But I have different methods. All in all, I think I used 15 or so in the book.
And when you talk about it, when you talk about your research, when you talk about this is also writing process, right? Combining everything all together. What was challenging for you during the process of writing the book? Because obviously, if you just say, I've used at least 15 different methodologies, that must have been challenging.
Yeah, that was challenging, but you use a method sometimes for 1 or 2 chapters or one. So that I was quite used to that. The real challenge was I had said to myself, this book, I love all kinds of scholarly books, but this book must be able to, you must be able to read it as a novel. So the book experiments on itself. The story of the constitutions is written as a story. So it takes you along the road. Sometimes I try to be funny. There are all kinds of anecdotes. So I I try to tell it like a story, and bring you in. So one of the things, I was born in the same village as Vincent van Gogh. And the part of recognition is, of course, a bit dry on how this works in theory, that people need recognition, and that there is no absolute value of things, imagined worlds as well. And what I did, and I thought, how can I explain that? And then I thought, listen, in the sunflowers he painted, you know, the wonderful in the sunflowers in the vase. It was sold, I think, for in excess of 17 million in Japan a few years ago. And then I tried to show people how recognition works when Vincent went to France. He was broke, and but he wrote letters, and you can see what he paid for the canvas, the paint, and what that would be present value. So the intrinsic value of sunflowers is 44 euros. Let's say $48. That's what it cost him. So, and that's what people are able to do. We can have imagined worlds, imagined values. We attribute value to things that gives recognition to people or things in our in our societies. And so that's what I try to do the whole time. Give an example, make it concrete, tell a story. This is, by the way, something that I love about John Elster. As I said, he always is setting up very nice stories as well. And I hope that makes the book readable, not only valuable for scholarly purposes, but also readable for general public. I've written it so a general public can read it as well. And that was challenging because that took the most time, how to make it into a story and not have these very long winding sentences we use in scholarly literature with a lot of commas and full columns and things like that. That took me more than half a year just to get the style right. Yeah.
But I do think, and at least that's what I get from you, that you actually turned your challenges into a rewarding part of writing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Correct. But then, what was then the rewarding, oh my God, the rewarding part of your research, of your writing? Can you say more about that as well?
Yes, when the story comes together at the end. So it ends with Pericles, the Pericles, the Greek Greek general, who gives an historical speech. I'm not going to summarize it. You need to write it yourself. But that was there. It came all together in the last chapter. And so then, when it works, and I write quite a few books for general public as well here in the Netherlands. So when you know that it is finished, I'm a real fan of Marcel Proust, and his servant at the time wrote a book on him. Celeste Alberet was her name. And you know, of course, Proust lying in his bed, making this wonderful à la recherche du temps perdu, in search of lost times, in remembrance of past times. And he lies there on his bed, and he's dying as well. So he was very afraid that he would die before it was finished. And Celeste comes in one morning after he had an asthmatic attack, and he says to her, and that is what she always remembered: "J'ai mis le mot fin." I have put in the word "the end," and that was the most rewarding for me as well. That you know that, yeah, the whole of the work is finished. That is, yeah. That is the best you could have done with it, and that it all comes together. Yeah.
Talking about completing the work, we also have to talk about looking forward. So what is next now that the book is out, that you're promoting it? What are you working on right now?
Yes, the book is actually from 2019, and I've written now a book in Dutch called Our Constitution, but it's in Dutch. It's for the Dutch public to, in very simple terms, show them what the Constitution is about, where it came from, and things like that. And you must not say that maybe of yourself, but it was quite a success, and I won a prize with it and things like that. I'm now just have finished a work on, it's in Dutch as well. It's called Active Memory. And this was a scandal in the Netherlands, and the prime minister had used the word active memory. That he was selectively forgetful, like politicians sometimes are. So if you asked him, did this or that happen? Oh, I don't remember, things like that. And he did that on and on again. And that is the anecdote which it begins with. But then it comes down, from this anecdote, you can read that people have high expectations of how the memory of another works, or how the memory of our leaders should work, or how the memory of a witness in a criminal trial should work. So we have high expectations from that. But if you know a bit about the brain, cognition, that we know a lot nowadays on how our brain works, our brain is set and is made for forgetting. So all out, it throws everything out. So our brain is, yeah, directed at forgetting. And that's what I do then. So I tell them how the brain works, and then I go discuss all kinds of norms and laws we have on how memory should work. So fiscal authorities, they will not grant you as an excuse, oh, I just forgot to fill in my tax return. But also a witness, sometimes they need to take an oath of and say something about things about 20 years ago. We know that the brain and memory is aimed at forgetting. So it will be distorted. We know from the cognitive sciences, but also in history. Sometimes we say things we should never forget, things we should always remember. And so I go along that the whole book long, and then I try to come up with an explanation for why that is. And again, this is human nature. We're set for there's a big need. We need to cooperate with more than 148. And I will give you the end of the book. No cliffhanger here. That these norms do the following thing. All of these names, they knock on your forehead and say, "Open up! I need your brain." So it is the collective brains of our society we want to protect, and so it is not your own to have and hold. We need to be able to dig into one another's brain to have these large collective brains. That's the theory of John Henrich, but plays out really well. So that's my next book. And then we are doing wonderful research together with Mila Versteeg on how constitutions play a role in parliamentary debates. That's an article we're going to set up. And we have one on political constitutionalism also. We are writing that, so that these are articles. But the next book is active memory. Yeah.
On that note, and knowing how busy you are, and hearing about everything that you do at this moment in particular, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. We're so happy to actually to have you on our channel, but also soon enough also on our podcast. Thank you so much, ma'am.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.